Hi.
Hello.
I did hit live. Yep. Okay.
Okay, we're live.
Oh, I got
We're not muted.
no.
I'm sort of muted. As good as it
Oh,
gets.
it's as good as it gets. Yeah. All right. I feel out of
So
practice.
I
Do
know.
you feel a little out of
I
practice?
a little bit,
Yeah.
a little bit. I it feels good to have all of that behind us, though. That was a big,
That was crazy.
crazy thing hanging over our heads,
It
and
was.
we had our first stage
It was so
stage
crazy.
show. Sarah did Saturday Night Fever, and
I
I tap danced.
danced and
You guys
yeah.
totally missed it. If you missed it, you really missed it,
Yeah.
because we were
We started our stuff
we
down the
did
catwalk.
we did we totally had a thing going on. So,
Oh, yeah.
but yeah, so that went well, and
It was a crazy couple
got
days.
got that under our belt,
Mhm.
and now it's not scary.
No, and
Of course, once we saw how big the stage actually was, it wasn't really scary anyways,
no, it was
because it was like,
uh-huh.
oh, we can do that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was a great weekend. So thank you to everybody who
Came out
came out and
visited.
said hey.
Yeah.
And hi,
Hi,
Mom.
Mom.
So yeah, that's done.
It's done. Yeah. And
So,
now we have like an entire year to plan our revenge of the show.
and we're totally going to start now.
Totally.
We'll start a week before we got to be there.
But
No, it won't be that bad, but
no. And we know what to.
we now know what to expect, and what we can plan for. And so sorry. We we know what kind of things we want to do up there, and it went really well though. So
Yeah. We went.
it was a good show
It's very well received show for us.
for us. We
It was
we
a little small, but we had a captive audience because there wasn't anything else to keep.
they're really, hopefully you were going looking for machines,
Yes,
because
because
there
there was
wasn't a whole lot of other things
a
to look
lot of
at.
machines to
So
look at.
there was a lot of machines and not a whole lot of other stuff. A little bit of fabric,
I did not
but
buy any fabric.
I only bought a little bit. But you don't really do clothes at all, so
No,
you
but
know.
this is the first year that I have not bought fabric to make clothes that I don't make.
Okay, so I have to admit, I didn't finish any of the projects that I bought stuff for last year. I did start. I have stuff cut and laid out, but I didn't actually finish anything that I bought from last year, unfortunately. We're going to be looking for that
I
later.
know. I put it in the drawer. All of these people can be my witness.
So when we can't find her phone, you guys can all call. Not that we'll be able to find the phone to answer, but and say it's in the drawer. Or we can
Like
just look back and see.
my panic attack at the show when Tucker had taken my phone. Well, I
Yeah,
gave
you
her
gave
my
her your phone.
because I was with someone, and then I knew it couldn't be far because my
Your
watch
watch
was
wasn't
still
yelling at you
connected.
yet. Yes.
But
But
I
you
was
couldn't
like,
find it.
"Where is it?" And it just completely slipped my mind that I actually handed my phone over to Tucker, and it was in safe hands, for sure. But I had that moment of like,
Yeah.
where
There
did
was
I
the
leave
moment
it?
when we were packing, and Jean was like, "We have to pack adding machines and calculators." And we
And we
both
were
looked at
like,
him like, "No, we're good.
yeah,
We've got
these
phones.
things, yeah,
These little things work really great."
yeah, that was
That was
funny.
pretty
Do
funny.
you have your adding machine?
We're good.
We're good. We all have them now.
Right in our back pocket.
like
But
like every math teacher when we were in high school, you won't be able to walk around with a calculator everywhere.
yep. You won't have one in your pocket. Yes, I will.
I do. I'm thankful.
Whoop.
Many times when I have to do some complicated math and I can't math it out in my brain. And oh my god, I'm sorry.
Don't do that.
Oh, I have not I
See what
definitely
she just
haven't
did?
recovered.
So, what did you do this weekend?
Yeah, I didn't do
I
any.
slept.
Yeah, did you? I slept up for a little while on Sunday,
I
but
unfortunately slept pretty much the whole day.
I didn't do
I
anything exciting for
I got
sure.
up and I was hungry. And I went in the kitchen. There was like no food. So I was like, oh, bowl of cereal it is. So I sat down, had a bowl of cereal. Jeff got up and he looked at me. He was like, cereal? I was like, what else? There's nothing really in there. And then I rinsed out my dish, crawled back in bed. I was cold. That was the biggest reason. And there was covers ready made right there. So took my iPad and my book and ready-made covers, and I was out in 5 minutes, maybe 10 tops. I was
Yeah.
back out and slept off and on all day. When I woke up, I read my book, a couple more pages in, back out again.
Back out again.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was my Sunday, but unfortunately, I didn't sew at all. Don't do that.
I didn't either. We've been binge watching Grey's Anatomy, so I watched that. I stopped long enough to watch the premiere of Yellowstone, which I was really sad because we watch it through an app because I don't have normal TV, and the app crashed.
Oh no!
So we couldn't watch it like live. We had to wait a
Wait
while,
a little bit.
and I was like just completely annoyed by the whole thing. Dave's like, you seem way more annoyed than you normally would over something like this, and I'm like, I totally am, and there's absolutely no reason, but I'm just tired.
Yeah, Jeff watched football. There was a lot of football, and
Yeah.
and it's always entertaining to listen to him watch football because he talks to the TV a lot.
A lot.
You know, and it's like he thinks he's a ref or something, you know, and he's calling plays, and
Yeah.
then he'll argue with the refs on the TV if they didn't agree with his call. You know, he's got to argue with them.
Yeah.
So it's entertaining to listen to, but I didn't watch anything. I did watch a little bit last night while I was eating, but that was it.
We picked up the car because we got our heated seats.
Yes, it's a good time of year to have those.
Yeah, we were excited to have the heated seats this morning.
Yep.
But
So
yep. So that was our big
that's
thing.
the excitement
And I was so annoyed at Dave that he had to pick Monday, the Monday after the show,
to
do
have
the
this done.
Yes. And I'm like, why didn't he do it next week? Because we have a dentist appointment anyway, so we could have just dropped it off on the way to Timbuktu, and then we wouldn't. But now we waste 2 Mondays. But
It
it's
is.
fine.
But
It is.
think about how glad you are when it's snowing
Yes.
that you'll be able to toast your buns
Yes.
when you get in the car.
And we could just take the other car.
You aren't supposed to think of that.
Right.
I was trying.
I know. All right.
Okay,
So,
so-
that's enough chit chatting. We sold a lot of Scan-A-Cuts.
We did sell a lot of scan and cuts.
So
We gave a few away,
yeah,
as a matter of fact, too. So
we did.
we thought today would be a good day, based on that information, to maybe go over some of the basics for those of you who just got a new one, or maybe haven't
taken it out of the box.
taken
yet.
yours out of the box, even if it wasn't new just this past week. We'll help you get a little bit more comfortable with the parts and the pieces, and maybe if you have something specific in mind that you want to do, know whether you have the right parts and pieces to do that with, so that when you sit down to do it, you are going to
Right.
succeed at this part and piece.
And at least a half a dozen people asked me the question this weekend, do you know what color blade is? And I'm like, there was absolutely no reason for me to remember what color what blade was because I have them with the stuff. So I'm like, no, let's go look at it. I couldn't tell you what. So I'm like, why? And then of course Cindy just, wow. I'm like, that's fantastic, but there's just no room for that here. So
That's a shame.
she made a cheat sheet.
I have made a sheet for all of you to cheat,
So you can be like me and not remember
and
it.
you don't have to remember it on your own. So this is, when we're done here, we will post it on our site under references that you can download it if you would like for free. It's a PDF, so you don't have to have any particular version of anything to be able to open it, except for an Adobe or something to that effect, like all of our other stuff that we post up there. So if you've downloaded something, you'll be able to download this one. And we're going to go through it today and just kind of talk about the different mats, the different blades, what colors are what, what's available, when you should use which one, and all of that paraphernalia. So without further
ado.
ado, here we go.
All right.
Yep, talk too much.
That one a little bigger. There we
That's
go.
the one we had.
Yeah. All right. So normally Lisa talks all about the scan and cut stuff, but I'm gonna give her voice a little bit of a rest, and she's gonna elbow me if I've got it wrong.
I think that sounds perfect.
All right.
Maybe
So
if I just feel like it too,
okay,
but
you could kick me under the table. They won't
okay.
know. So, using your scan and cut should not cause you any stress. Yeah, because I know we all have a lot of stuff in our brains. So,
Right.
it's nice to be able to have a reference sheet that is, it's very well done. Good job.
Thank you.
I totally can understand it, so you guys should be able to understand it too.
It's exactly what she said. She was like, I get it. All right.
So she took some little pictures of the bottom of the mats. If you have your mats in front of you when you're viewing this, you can see that the bottoms have those little triangles, and the triangles have colors. And so the low tack mat is turquoise, and that one comes in two sizes. So the standard 12 by 12, and then there's an extra long one, which is 12 by 24. And then we have a standard tack mat, which has a little purple accent color, and the same sizes 12 by 12 or that 12 by 24. And then we have a third mat, which is our fabric mat. And this one is gold or tan, and it comes just in 12 by 12. So it doesn't come in that extra
I'm
long
hoping that maybe next
day.
year they're going to come out with the 24, but as of they didn't do it this year. I kind of thought maybe it would come this year, and it didn't. So I don't know if they don't plan to, or if they just haven't been able to get adhesive
Maybe
in that
consistently.
consistent throughout that large size. That I'm wondering if that's the hold up on that. I'm not sure, but
This is also like low, medium, and high for reference. So the low tack is the least amount of sticky, and the fabric mat has more sticky than the standard mat. This is correct,
that's
right?
correct. Yep.
And then we have a scanning mat, which doesn't have any sticky on it, but it works really great if you're trying to scan something. So if you've got any pattern or any paper or anything that you're trying to scan, don't stick it to your mat. Because, well, then you have to clean the gunk off of the mat, or it's on it. Definitely don't put paper on your fabric mat. It's really sticky.
Absolutely not. And the the scanning mat is people. I always ask, do I really need a scanning mat? Because it is an additional purchase. It doesn't come with. And it's one of those things that's like, well, what do you plan to do? So if you only plan to scan once in a blue moon, well, then no, you probably don't want to invest in that. But if you plan to, if you've got this pile of old patterns
Yeah.
that have
That are like hand drawn or.
that are traditional machine applique that you don't have an SVG file for, that you're planning to create those, that would be an instance that it would be worth it for you. You're going to get a cleaner scan, and it won't damage the pattern, where there's not a guarantee that the sticky wouldn't tear the paper of the pattern
Right.
by using a regular mat to scan. You can use a regular mat to scan.
Yeah.
It's just dependent upon what you're scanning.
Yes.
You could damage what's on there from the amount of sticky.
For sure. So the scanning mat is good to use if you have, like, you were a traditional appliquer, or maybe you're an artist, like, or you do cards or stuff like that. So anytime that you just don't already have a digital file,
Right.
It's good to have.
And I download and print off things from the internet. Like when Caitlin says, I want this for my costume,
Yeah.
and I need some goofy whatever, I'll print it and then just scan it in, because that's the easiest way to create the file.
Right.
And that would be an exact reference point of when you would want to use a scanning mat if you're not doing machine applique.
Yes.
So for like heat transfer vinyl or something like that.
So 4 possible mats. 2 of them come in 2 different sizes, and the scanning mat also comes in a normal size 12 by 12, and then that 12 by 24.
That is correct.
And then here are the blade tops that I don't remember. So black top is is the standard blade, so that comes in, everybody gets one of those.
Yep.
Then we have the gold one, which is the thin fabric blade, and it also matches your fabric mat. Do you have to use the same blade with mat, or can you mix and match?
You can mix and match. So a lot of times I'm using that auto blade based on the the thickness or whatnot that I'm using. So the thin fabric, which is the name of that, is exactly what it sounds like. If it's not a thin fabric,
Don't
you're
use
not
it.
going to use that blade. So, you know, a lot of people want to use their fabric mat, even if they don't have just fabric, in which they're flipping their materials upside down so that their paper or their fusible or whatnot isn't what's
Stuck.
being stuck.
Right.
And that's going to be too thick for the most part for that blade. So you can still use your auto blade with your fabric mat or your fabric blade with your standard mat or so on and so forth. So you can mix and match. It's really a matter of picking the proper utensil
Yes.
for
then your
whatever it
plate.
is, and then get your plate. Yep, absolutely right. So get that right tool, and then pair that up with the right item
But
versus.
it is okay to mix and match. There you go. So you don't have to just use the thin fabric blade with your fabric mat. You can use your standard blade as well, or probably your rotary blade as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then we have the vinyl blade, which has a blue top, and that is the new thin vinyl
So
blade.
that is, yes, and it's for real detailed,
Right.
is the idea behind that. So when you get that, you're going to get designs. And the designs that you get, whether you have the Disney one or not, have really thin lines or small circles, really, really detailed. And it looks a lot like the thin fabric blade. When you're looking at the blades themselves, they're very, very fine. And the idea behind it is that you can get a really tight circle and really thin lines that they can get a nice sharp point without shredding or tearing up whatever it is that you're cutting.
Makes sense.
So that they work really, really well for that. That being said, you can cut large block things with the vinyl blade. It doesn't have to be detailed. It will cut a standard normal size piece with no problem too.
And then we have our rotary blade, which is the turquoise top. And the rotary blade is brand new, and it looks different than everything else.
It feels different.
Yes.
Very much so. It's
And,
very, very heavy.
The blade at the bottom is circular, hence the rotary name, kind of like a regular rotary cutter that we use for other things, and it's round. So I know when these first came out, I used this blade to cut like some fabric masks and stuff like that because I just kind of wanted to see what it was going
Right.
to do. And one of the things that I noticed, just like my regular rotary cutter, right? It does gentle curves really well, but it doesn't do like any massive change of direction quickly because it literally has to sort of pick up the blade.
It has to stop cutting, pick up, and adjust.
And kind of adjust.
Yep.
So if you think about how you would use a regular rotary cutter for cutting out design-wise, definitely take that into consideration when you're using this. And it's really designed for certain types of material. And I kind of liken it to this is a rotary cutter, so it rolls on the fabric versus like using an X-Acto knife that
It's
kind
gonna
of
drag.
drags on it. So a lot of stuff you could use either or, but some stuff like maybe felt and fleece and things that's really kind of squishy, I guess is the right word.
Right.
Or
If you
shifty.
try, if you've tried to cut those with your auto blade, depending upon what you're cutting and which mat you were trying to use, what happens a lot of time is it like literally rips it up off the mat and just throws it.
Yeah.
So you end up with this big accordion piece, and then the machine stops cutting because you have this ball of fabric that can't move through the machine.
Yeah.
So what the rotary blade allows to happen is that there's not pressure being applied down on the fabric so that it's not dragging. It just rolls, so that we get that cut without it moving the fabric on the mat, and it just it works.
Yes.
It really does a really great job. So it does work just like the rotary blade that we use when we're cutting fabric on our mats, just in miniature. So I
Yeah.
mean, it is a tiny, tiny little circle. And so that is got a lot of weight to it. When you feel it, it feels very different, and it is a different expense to replace. So that is the one that's different from everything else.
And blades and tops. So you can't put a vinyl blade in a thin fabric blade holder.
Well, you don't want to.
And
I imagine you probably could, but I don't recommend it because then you wouldn't know what the heck you had where.
right. And you definitely can't put the rotary blade
That
in
one
any
for sure,
of the
yep.
other ones. And the vinyl and the thin fabric blade, they are a little bit different than the standard blade. So
So you can definitely see the difference
yes.
on the auto blade versus the thin or the vinyl. I mean, visually, they're that different. You can physically see them and what the differences are. So it's, when you go to change it or something and you're like, oh, that's the wrong one, you would be able to see it. The thin fabric and the vinyl, like I said, look
They look
very,
very
very similar. So those are difficult to tell apart. So I would keep the packaging until you go to change it.
And you can, once you own a holder, you can change blades. So you
Yes.
don't have to buy holders. You have blades that you can purchase.
So this is,
Let me make us bigger. Let me use the right mouse because I have more than one over here.
yeah. So this is the vinyl. It's got the white blue top to it. I get asked this all the time. I'm like, okay, great. Well, how do I change that? What am I supposed to do? This bottom part is just screwed out. So I'm going to just take that part off. There is a spring that is normally attached. At some point, it's going to become unattached. No big deal. Just make sure it's back in there when you put everything back together. So just set it in there, and when you go to screw the top back or the bottom, whatever way you call it, whichever direction you want to call it, top, bottom, or top, it will allow for that spring action to be happening. So the blade that's in there, and I know it's super hard to see, it's got a magnet inside of here that holds onto that. So you don't want to just slam down because they're sharp even when they're time to change. You're still going to hurt yourself if you just stab in there. So I usually grab around the sides and then you want to pull up. And when you pull up, it literally just comes right out. And it sucks right back in there. So, yeah, I don't have any nails left on me anymore. They're completely. So that is literally it's literally that small. It's tiny. So I'm just going to, you can see it's got a metal shaft and then there's the blade on the top. And the magnet inside of there, when you set the new one on there, it literally just sucks it right in there and that's it. And you just take the top and screw that back on. And like I said, if your spring is loose, just make sure that it's in there. My microphone sounds funny.
Yeah, it's her voice. She's still having a little bit of trouble finding her voice since she
It's like
lost
I'm
it.
Minnie Mouse or something.
Yeah.
I'm just a little squeaky. So it's very simple, but do take a little bit of care when you go to pull out the blades.
Yep. Don't go.
Sorry.
You'll regret that.
Yeah, they are. I've not actually ever stabbed, and I've done this oodles and oodles of times, even not really paying attention on film or whatnot. So just grab from the sides and then pull up, and you should be fine. But that's all there is to changing them. Same way with the rotary blade. They're just a little circular one on the end instead. So, but that's the blade situation there.
All right. So let's see.
Different mouse.
Different mouse. Yep. Pick the right mouse, Sarah. All right. So this is a really good sheet that helps you determine what mat and what blade is appropriate for the style of stuff that you have on there. And again, we're going to have this file for you. So if it's too small for you to read on your screen right now, no worries. You don't even need to try to jot this down
Nope.
because the information will be there. So you've got this one has paper, fabric, and others. And then it has like a general thickness to it, and then it's going to give you some information about your mat, whether or not you want a sheet for fabric cutting or auto blade. So this still has the high-tech adhesive fabric support sheet on here, which we don't tend to use very
No.
often.
I didn't really even use it when we didn't have a fabric mat. I just wasn't a big fan. I would use a very new standard and maybe tape the edges of my fabric just to keep it a little bit extra secure.
Yeah.
The high-tech support sheets are supposed to be cut as you're, and then you'll just replace it when you
Right.
run out of, you're going to cut it to ribbons basically,
Right.
and then when you have nothing left, you would replace it. The middle section there under sheet for fabric cutting, that's basically going to be your fabric mat at this point. So that is the replacement for that. So if you, whenever you download this, if you want to just write fabric mat in there, that is the section that you would use for that instead. So the this was created, and I couldn't find a newer one with the 225s before the fabric mat
Mat
came out.
Yeah.
So I figured that it was still really good information, so I would include
Yeah,
that
for sure.
in there. So.
It doesn't have the rotary blade on it yet as well, but you know,
So I'm going to say this with the best intentions.
Yeah.
Which blade you're picking really comes down to common sense.
yeah,
It's really comes down to, well, what is it that I'm trying to do, and what's the best way to get that to happen?
Right.
So when we really come down to it, if I put fleece or felt, or God forbid velveteen, on a super, super sticky mat, I'm going to leave parts of that behind,
right.
right? So I don't need to do that. And now that we have the rotary blade,
We
it
definitely-
doesn't need to be as sticky. So I remember when the rotary blade first came out,
Yeah.
and we read the instructions and it said low tack mat. We were both like,
What?
you want me to put my fabric on what mat? I'm like, that fabric doesn't work on that. It'll move, and but the fact of the matter is it doesn't, because there's no pushing on the fabric. So just think about the big picture and what it is that you're doing.
Yes.
Sadly, it's common sense. Is you got to have a column for that too.
yes.
but,
Yes. Which we know everybody, all of our customers have this.
Absolutely,
Have the best customers.
we do. Absolutely.
So I like this, that like there's a printer paper and then it says
No go, no
don't
go.
do it.
Absolutely. Do not put
that
this on
your standard mat. That's fantastic. Yeah, you just never know. And when you first get your stuff, you're probably gonna ruin a mat. It happens.
It's happened.
It definitely happens. Don't beat yourself up too much about it, because you gotta learn. And so sometimes you put the wrong thing on the mat. There's a lot you can do to clean your mat, but it does happen.
Yes. Did you know I did that?
You shared some photos.
I don't remember doing that. Imagine that.
That was funny. Did that seem weird, seeing your name come down there?
I wasn't prepared for that, but
You just never know what Instagram is going to tell me.
okay then.
But yeah, this is really great. It's a lot of information, printer paper, scrapbook paper, cardstock, tracing paper, and then thin cotton with and without a backing, and then flannel, felt, denim, plastic, vinyl, magnet, stickers,
Yep.
foam,
All
that
kinds of
types
fun stuff.
So it has a little bit of everything in it. And, I like to have like a reference chart to go back to, because I don't know, the older I get, the easier it is for me to forget it 30 seconds later.
Well, sure.
So this is really nice. And you can, if you make some sort of a change and it's something that you really want to remember, it's a good place for
Just
you
jot
to,
something down and
yeah,
say, that didn't work, don't do this,
exactly, don't
or,
do that.
and once your mats have been used for
A little
a
while.
little while, they're not going to be as sticky as they were right out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
And so things are going to need to adjust a little bit as
Right.
well. So, as they're brand new, they're as sticky as they're ever going to be, and things will matter a whole lot more
Mm-hmm.
where you're putting something.
Right.
As your standard mat gets less tacky because you've used it and it's got little bits of fuzz here and there and you
Mm-hmm.
just can't get it all off,
Now it's more like a low tack.
it's going to be getting closer and closer to a low tack mat that you can then use for different things.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a range of mats that,
Yeah.
I have standard mats that have been used to the extent that they basically are a low tack mat at this point, and I have low tack mats that there's
Could be
just
a scanning
nothing,
mat now.
there's just about nothing left, and
Right.
if I use that, I am taping the edge because there's
Yeah.
so little adhesive left. And we'll talk about cleaning and how to try to keep those as long as possible and functional as long as possible.
So with mats, we have we kind of already talked about this. The chart above shows some examples on how to use either the low tack or the standard tack mats, and then the center column talks about the fabric sheets, and she said that's the one that we're kind of talking about replacing that with the fabric mat. And these recommendations are for mats that are brand new and at their tackiest. Like she said, they do become less tacky with time.
Yep.
That sounds funny. Less tacky with time, as we all do, right?
Right. Absolutely.
We recommend using LA's Totally Awesome to clean their mats, to clean your mats, to clean our mats. That's what we
Yes.
use. They now have scents and not just the weird
Yeah.
yellow scent.
And I have used both the original yellow and a scented
Cherry
piece.
blossom, I think.
Cherry
is the last
blossom,
one
I
got.
think, is the last thing,
Yeah.
and it works really well. There really isn't a thing as of too much to put on. There is not enough for sure.
Yeah.
You don't need to dilute it. And what you don't want to do is scrape. We want to just move the cleaner around. And what we'll do is pull up the fuzzies out of the cut lines that are in the mat, and that will get them out of there, which is what prevents them to stay sticky, is if you leave that fuzz in there.
Yep.
So this is a fantastic tool that we learned about from Cindy.
It's totally awesome.
It is totally awesome. Imagine that. But
So your low tack mat is let me read that. The low tack mat is for items that will tear or separate. That makes more sense when you put the right words in there.
in the sentence, in the order
In
I
the
wrote
order
it,
that
yeah.
you wrote it, yes. If you put something that has too much adhesive on there, then it will.
It separates it, or
Yes, it's not good. Don't do that.
don't do that.
Yes.
It's bad.
So the low tack mat is ideal for paper items and things like that. And well, it's sometimes vinyl, right?
I do, yeah, absolutely. Especially when it's a newer mat. It's got plenty of tack to hold down a heat transfer vinyl. Your craft vinyl, the backing on that actually has paper. So
Right.
it's a great choice no matter when you're using it for craft vinyl.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And then when your using with your rotary blade. It's really tiny words over there. I should
You
just
could read
look
it over there.
here and it would make much more sense.
I can see it over there, so you
Right.
should probably be able to see that there
I
too.
should just turn my head. So mat with your vinyl, especially when it's new, and use this mat when you are using your rotary cutter, the rotary blade, and cutting thicker items such as felt, batting leather. Your low tack mat is definitely going to be the way to go. If you use too much tack, your items stick to the mat and leave a mess behind, which can also distort upon removal. We have all cut something that is fuzzy and it goes everywhere. Um, so
Yep.
it will be all over your mat. I do recall an instance where someone had been cutting something that was super fuzzy and she was
Mm-hmm.
super upset that the fuzz was still on her mat. And
Yep. That happened.
it does. And it will if you put something fuzzy on there for sure. Um,
So I mean, even brand new, the low tack has still got a decent amount
Amount
of
of
tack
tack,
to it.
mhm.
So I mean, it's the least amount, but it's still got a pretty
Sticky.
good amount of oomph. So
Yes.
again, the common sense is going to come back in. One of the things that we see people do regularly is, they're really pushing the item into the mat. And you don't really need to do that unless it's something that you've got bubbles that you're trying to get out so that you do get a clean cut, something like that. There's, you know,
Yep.
especially like the rotary blade, it doesn't need to be ground in.
No, it does not.
It will cut beautifully just stuck on the top of the mat.
Yes.
It'll be perfect. So, yep.
So your standard tack mat is your go-to mat. This is probably the one you'll be using the most. And it will be used for all things that are in between. Fabric with fusible on it, vinyl, and can be used for paper as well. Probably not when it is brand new though. This mat has enough hold to keep your textile in place while the blade is in motion. So if you have fabric with like heat and bond or steam seam or
Applique wonder
wonder
type,
or yeah,
fusible
fusible
applique.
applique, any of those types of things, this is definitely the mat that you're going to use. Now, do you typically the couple of times that I have used my mat with sticky on it, I peeled the paper off and stuck the back of the fusible down, and I cut my fabric right side up.
Depends on what kind of
Mm-hmm.
fusible that you're talking about. So, like the heat and bond light doesn't have a
It's not like a
sticker.
sticker. Yes.
If it's a sticker,
Yes. You do
do
not want to do that.
not, under any circumstance, do that. It will never come back off.
Right.
Ever.
Ever.
That is one instance that you will be buying a new mat. There is no way we're ever going to get that off. It will separate from your fabric and you will permanently have whatever you have stuck on there.
Yes.
That fusible will be there. So if you have a fusible that doesn't have that, by all means, it's totally up to you. So it really depends on what you're doing. I know Cindy prefers to take her paper off, and she prefers to use ones that don't have the sticky port.
Right.
So it depends on what kind you're using and what type of project you're doing with it,
Right.
what you have. So as long as you don't have a sticker, by all means, go for it.
Yes.
And you can use that on a fabric mat without any issue, as long as it is fused well.
Well.
If it's not fused well, it'll separate when you go to
Yes.
peel it back
Peel
off.
it off. Yes. That's where the little spatula is super helpful because you can get underneath those edges. You're going to want to do what everybody wants to do, which is just grab it with the end of your nail and you're going to want to peel that off. But
Right.
boy, that spatula really prevents like the little fraying that can happen around
Yep.
the outside edges. Even when you get a perfectly clean cut, that spatula pulling up on the edge really does make a big difference.
Yep.
So resist the urge.
It is hard.
It is hard.
Yep. So a lot of times, not with fabric, but with vinyls and things, I'll just bend my mat a little bit
Yeah.
where it pops off,
Pops
and then
off.
you can grab it without anything. But you have to be careful. You don't want, of course, want to crack your mat.
No.
And get a bend in it. That's not what we're looking for.
fabric
and
sometimes
fabric
isn't
doesn't really
not-
do that because
Might
it doesn't
depend on
have
how
a.
much starch you put on it.
If it's a super starch fabric,
Maybe.
maybe. But yeah, in general, the spatula is going to be the way to go. Most definitely.
That will help get that off. All right. The fabric mat was released just over a year ago, and what a difference it has made. It replaces the need to add a high tack support sheet which we didn't like anyways.
Nope.
This mat is for when you are cutting your fabric by itself. That means you have nothing fused to it. This is for fussy cutting, for cutting quilt block pieces and fabrics prepped with starch or starch alternative. If you put paper or fabric that has fusible on it, usually that paper on it, the paperback kind, it will stick to the mat so securely you will need to replace your mat as it will not come off. Um, Yep. So
Yep.
it's happened. We've seen it. We can promise it's
Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do to wave. We don't have a magic wand that fixes that. So
no.
I wish we did, but we don't.
Essentially, what happens if you put something like fusible applique, like we love? If you peeled the sticker back and you put that on there, it's kind of like putting the fabric, high tech fabric mat on it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you're putting a sticker on adhesive. So that's literally what you're doing. And they just bond to one another and that's it. You're done.
They're mated for life.
It's a beautiful, very fabric colored mat. Yep.
Yep.
Don't do that.
No, no, it's not. It will
It's
not
a
be your
very
friend.
sad day. So yeah, don't ever do that.
Yes. And now we have this scanning mat, which it just scans. Don't cut on it.
Yep.
The scanning mat is just what it sounds like. It is not included with the purchase of any scan and cut. So if you don't have one, it's not because you don't want it. It's because maybe you haven't bought it yet. But if you plan to scan to create a lot of designs, it is recommended. It will give you a clearer scanned image and will not damage your original because there is no adhesive on there. So I know we have a lot of people who like stamp art and cards and that type of stuff. If you are trying to get an image from something like that, it's really good to be able to
It will help
scan that.
and get a cleaner scan. You don't have the noise going on around, so it's a lot easier to get a much cleaner scan. The one thing to remember, of course, is you can't do a direct cut
Right.
with this. So if you're doing a direct cut, you still have to use a mat because it's going to cut immediately once it finds the file edges.
Yes.
So depending upon what your goal is, but as long as you're trying to create a cut file that you're going to use after the fact, you will generally get a better, cleaner scan. And again, there's no adhesive, so you don't have to worry about tearing from sticking to the adhesive of the mat or anything like that. You know, a lot of patterns have that really thin paper, which doesn't come off even the low tack well. So it works really well for that kind of pattern skin. Nope, it just tears and you're pretty much done for. But it's weird. I'm not sure exactly why, but it scans almost in a different color. It works.
Maybe
It's got something else in it
Yeah,
that the machine recognizes, and it comes out cleaner. You do get a completely different scan using the scanning mat.
so definitely a good thing to have, especially if you're like an artist or you're drawing and
Yep. And you know, as we said, it's available in both a 12 by 12 or 12 by 24. And for the most part, we're talking about, you know, the DX machines with all of the blades and everything here. There are a few of the older CM machines that won't scan in 24 inches, just throwing that out there. So make sure you check on what your machine is capable of before you purchase a mat that it's not able to do.
Right, and the rotary, the thin vinyl, and the thin fabric blade are also only available for the DX models. Yes. We know we're kind of just assuming that everybody has moved on at this point.
At this
And
point,
if you
you know.
haven't, we're not trying to pick on you.
Nope, we're not. We're just, you know, as we said, a lot of people went home with these this weekend, and we're just trying to make sure that everybody can open the box and not be stressed.
Right. We don't want anybody to be stressed.
No stress.
So we kind of already covered these. The auto blade is your default blade. This is the one you're going to use for a lot of stuff.
Yes.
And when the DX model came out, this was it. We just had the one.
We had two. They did have the fabric blade. They didn't have a special mat for it.
Right.
But and it was funny because we would put that blade in and then we'd forget to take it out and we'd go to cut something and it wouldn't work and we were like, what the heck's going on? My machine's not working very well. And, when we demo, somebody had swapped it ahead of us or whatnot, and we didn't know because it wasn't us that did it, and it was, oops. I had a few demos personally that was kind of just like, well, that didn't go quite as I planned. Let me put the correct blade in now, and I'll show you what it's supposed to do.
So now you know.
Now you know. So what I actually do now for mine at home is I leave my blade carrier empty. So I choose the blade that is appropriate for whatever my project is. So that way I'm not accidentally cutting with the wrong thing. So whatever it is that I'm cutting, I grab that blade and put it in. And then when I'm done, I take the blades out. So I'm always having to choose a blade. And
Yes.
that way I don't have
I-
I don't have leftovers.
I definitely do that because, again, I would look at it at first glance and be like,
Oh, that looks good.
I wonder what I cut last time. I don't recognize the color of that top.
That means nothing to me. I'm just going to go
Let's
for
just
it.
See what happens. Yeah, I definitely take it out and then just
So-
grab the one that I need. Good practice to get
It is.
into.
It is,
Yes.
and I never used to do that because I never had this many blades to choose from.
Right.
But this way, I don't have the wrong one.
Because that never happens.
Because no, we get so much help here.
Then we have the thin fabric blade. This is, again, for fabric with nothing fused to it, but fabric that has been starched. A lot of times we use this with the fabric mat, but as Lisa said earlier, it isn't a requirement. It is just one of those things that we kind of tend to do. Not necessary, as the machine will cut perfect using a fabric blade and mat even if the fabric is not prepared. If I'm cutting paper with a thickness of printer paper or similar, I will often use this blade as it is thin and it doesn't shred the paper. Well, I bet you guys didn't know that. I didn't.
It's my little secret. You guys all know my little secret now.
It is possible you've told me that before.
Maybe.
Now I have a cheat sheet.
I've taught it in classes before, but it's just one of those. That paper's super thin comparative to a lot of what we are doing, and I get asked a lot. Well, do you keep an auto blade for paper and an auto blade for different types? And I don't. When it gets dull, I give it an extra kick. When that doesn't work anymore, I replace it. So that's just how I find that to be so much easier than trying to keep track of which blade goes with which one and what setting that one had on it and blah blah blah. I don't do that. That's too much for my brain to hold. So I just when it's dull, I replace it.
Yeah.
But
it's nice to have a backup blade, just in case.
Yes.
I definitely recommend having
Sorry.
a backup blade because
especially of at least your auto. At least have that one. I can pretty much guarantee when you need it, it will be Sunday at about 2 o'clock. It's always Sunday. Time might fluctuate, but it's always on a Sunday. Or like 11 p.m. on Saturday night,
right.
which it might as well be Sunday.
Or it'll be the middle of the day and you will have plenty of time, but they will be out of stock everywhere.
At least have that auto blade because your auto blade can be used for
just
just about anything with a little bit of finagling. So if you have at least that as a backup, you're pretty good.
If you don't ever use that one, if you only ever use the thin fabric blade,
Right, of course,
have the
whatever
extra-
you're always using.
Yes.
But if you use all of them like I do, then I would recommend if you're only going to have one as an always have backup, I would have that one as your always backup.
The vinyl blade is designed for intricate vinyl cuts. When you purchase this blade, it comes with a collection of designs that have very thin lines and or small dots. These are the types of cut files it was designed for, but it will cut bigger, bolder projects as well.
Perfectly, just as well.
And that rotary blade is just like a miniature rotary cutter. The blade behaves very differently from our others as there is no drag on the fabric when cutting. Instead, the auto blade applying pressure and pulling or pushing the blade on the mat, this rotary blade turns, so we're able to cut types of fabrics that previously made mess on the mat, such as felt, batting, leather, minky, and other things similar consistency, cut with ease with the rotary blade. These items are generally going to be on your low tack or your standard mat, maybe not brand new standard mat. So that is what we have there. Someone said that she couldn't hear me. Hopefully, the good news is you will be able to get this file and download it. So if for some reason you cannot hear me, my sweater
Roxanne, if you can't hear me, unfortunately, it's because I'm having a voice. So there's just nothing to hear.
And if you can't hear us, I can see the microphone is picking me up. There might be something wrong with your
Yeah,
sound.
maybe
on
try
your
to turn
end.
it up a little bit. But I apologize if it's me. It's me.
And then some of the machine settings to note, there is a little wrench picture on your machine. One of the most common things on here that we change is between millimeters and inches. Lots of us change like everything on our sewing machine and everything to inches kind of right away. If you're over here in the United States, because maybe we don't think in metric.
I certainly don't.
But like we talked a lot about this weekend. Applique designs. If you're bringing applique designs over, change your machine to millimeters if you're going to increase the size just a smidge, because a lot smaller sounds way easier to get. So like 1 millimeter is way easier to bump up than like a 30
Increments of
seconds
inches.
of an inch. Yes.
Yes.
So that is one of the things that you will change in your machine under that wrench button. And then your cut area, make sure that you have the correct cut size area. There is a 12 by 12 or a 12 by 24 area there. It's important to.
It is, and it's also possible to make that smaller than 12 by 12 or an odd shape. And I have had people that had like a 12 by 10. So somehow they went into that setting and moved an arrow so it made it smaller. And then their cut file was outside
Oh, that
of
makes sense.
the field, and their machine was not obviously not working
Yeah.
because it was saying, nope, that's not it's not in my cut field. And they're like, I don't get it. It's on my mat. It looks just fine. What's
Yes.
going on? And so it is possible. So if you ever get a message saying that it's not part of, it won't cut because it's not in that field, and you're like, yeah, it is. Go into your wrench settings and check and make sure that somehow that hasn't been adjusted, because I've taken that phone call many times and no one ever knows how it got adjusted. No one's, I mean, everybody says, I didn't change that. And I do mean everyone. No one ever goes, oh yeah, I was playing with that. Nobody ever owns up to moving that number. But it does happen somehow here and there. So if you, that is it matters, and your machine is very specific. It needs to know it has that full area to work with to let you cut in that full area.
And you have the option to add a seam allowance.
You do.
So if you're a quilter and you're cutting out shapes and you want to auto add the seam allowance in, you can do that, and you can pick. Mostly, if you're a quilter, you're probably going to pick 1/4 of an inch. But maybe if you're a garment sewer and you're cutting something, you might do something bigger, 3/8, 5/8, whatever.
Yep.
Whatever that gargantuan seam allowance is for
That
you
would be a
garment
5/8.
people. I know it
Yeah.
seems so big.
Yeah, it is. The default, if you don't change anything, is a 1/4 inch. So if you don't change anything and you just turned on the the seam allowance button, it will be a 1/4 inch.
And then there is a place for you to verify that you were up to date on your current version. So they do send out updates to these machines on occasion. It's not like they do it all the time, but on occasion, and you can double check to make sure that you are at the most current version.
There was one recently due to the Art Spira app being released. So if you have not done that, then you probably have an update waiting for you. So that's going to have that little exclamation point that says, hey, I need some attention. And the Wi-Fi, they're all Wi-Fi now capable as long as you've connected that. So it will do that all on its own.
Yep. And then because we figured someone would ask if you don't already have these, you can get a vinyl blade kit, and the price is $59.99. There is also a Disney vinyl blade kit. Everything that you find in the standard vinyl blade kit is in the Disney one, in addition. So the Disney one has the Disney stuff with everything that was in the original vinyl blade one.
Plus the Disney card.
Plus the Disney card, yes. And then you have the rotary blade kit, which is $50. And that has some designs and stuff in there as well, including, I think there's like, you did say a font, right? Quilt patterns and
There
like
are letters.
Yeah,
Yep.
they're kind of cool letters.
They are.
And I think we've
I
come
think that's the whole shebang.
shebang.
So the vinyl blades are no longer included in any box. So if you would like the vinyl blade, that's either the non-Disney or Disney version vinyl blade kit is the way to get the vinyl blade. It is not included with any machine purchase any longer. So if you have a 300 series, a 325 or a 330, and you would like the vinyl blade, it's not in your box. I guarantee it's not there. You would need to get that separately, and we do have those here in stock, I believe. I think we have.
Disney.
I see Disney, and I'm pretty sure we have some in the drawer as well. So that we have those kits available. The rotary blades come in the 330, but not the 325. So if you would like to get that blade, we just got some of those in. So I do have some rotary blade kits, and those are available again.
Back ordered for a little while.
So we did just get some of those in. And then the fabric blade and holder, those aren't in a kit, but if you have the 330 and you want that specific blade, that would be an additional purchase for you. And I believe the holder is $22 and the blade is $16.99 is how much that is to add that. So
sounds right.
we do not have, oh wait, I take that back. I do have a holder, it looks like. But I need to get more because I know we have some that,
Yes.
we've got some people this weekend that asked for some, so I know we're going to be low very soon if we're not already behind. So that is how to get the ones that you don't already have and which ones you should have if you didn't get it with your machine. There you go.
Thanks. That was a great little handout that you made for us.
I hope it helps. You guys know, if you got your machines from us, we are absolutely here for you. They will gladly pass the phone to me if you call. Pretty much. Don't call on Thursday. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so
we just fake it on Thursdays.
fake it till you make it. But yeah, so that's the nitty-gritty in a nutshell. So hopefully that helps you get a little bit more comfortable with which one to use and which one to grab. Again, the Totally Awesome is highly recommended. You can find that at Dollar Trees, at Big Lots. You can get it on Amazon, but it's way more expensive on Amazon than the $1.25 or whatever it is at a dollar store. Have you seen it anywhere else?
I have never seen it at Big Lots. I have only ever seen it at the Dollar Tree.
I haven't been to a Big Lots in a while, but the last time I was at a Big Lots, they had some, but it's been quite some time. But we do carry, we try to carry some here, and I have to make some money on it, so it's like $2 or whatever here. Whoop-de-doo. But we do try to have some here, so if you can't find it anywhere, you can try us, and we will hopefully be able to help you too. So, but cleaning your mats will make them last longer, I guarantee it. The other trick to keeping your mats lasting longer, when you load a design in, it will automatically load in the upper left-hand corner of the mat. Move it. Don't always cut in the upper left-hand corner of your mat.
Really? You shouldn't always cut in the same spot?
Nope.
We
So-
never do that over here, right?
No. Right? But if you move the design around the mat, you will elongate the life instead of having just one spot that gets chewed up. Spread it out. Share the wealth of getting chewed up.
Chew the rest of it up.
Chew the rest of it up too, absolutely. It is supposed to mark the mat. It's supposed to happen. The only time you're not going to see that is if you're doing vinyl or something with a half cut feature, because that only goes halfway through your product. Anytime that you are cutting all the way through, you should be seeing a cut line on the mat. If you don't,
It's not
something's not doing it right. There's something not quite right. So
Right.
it is supposed to go into the mat. They are not supposed to last forever, but you should be able to use it for a long time as long as you're taking care of it.
Yep,
And if you start cleaning it from day one, it'll last.
a long time.
Yep. And no, I can't tell you how long, because
Right.
it depends on what you're cutting and how well you clean it.
Yep.
So there you go.
All right, we'll get that loaded up, so it should be there later on.
Yep.
And I'll link it to this post later on. But I think that's
all
all
we've
we
got.
have. Yeah.
So enjoy. Hopefully that helps those of you who have them. If you've had them for a while, hopefully it helps. If it's brand new, hopefully it takes a little bit of the fear away of what do I do. And that's all we have. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.